I was watching a documentary film called 杀马特我爱你, a film about a group of people, a style that I remember seeing in the late noughties and early 2010s. They were called scene kids. This scene movement was concerned with a certain style of dress that was so far outside the norm that it would always attract attention, from parents and teachers alike. In China, it seems that this scene, called smart or 杀马特, became popular amongst migrant workers and developed into a strong marginalized subculture, a viral phenomenon, and a second family for people who were otherwise left behind.
跟他们玩的时候确实很疯，就是玩的太疯了，天天晚上在厂里上班，天天晚上不加班，主管叫加也不加。去溜完冰了，就去50里面喝酒，喝醉了就回去。有很多朋友可以谈心啊，这些可以忘掉一切，就是朋友难过，我们一起陪难过，就是这样。
This got me thinking about how certain groups of people are portrayed in film, and the fact that most of the films I love have subcultures or countercultures as their backgrounds. I started thinking about where this focus came from, and the perspective we get of society when we watch films about subcultures or forgotten groups of people. Films about subculture and normal people grew mainly from the social realist movement. It was a movement dedicated to portraying contemporary life by linking character, environment, and culture in a way that comments on and critiques the reality of life for the people it portrays. Think Saturday night, Sunday morning, and its portrayal of working class culture being a revolutionary moment for social realism. Since then, it's a common trait to see films dedicated to examining the lives of ordinary or forgotten people. Chinese cinema has many films like this, and we can see it in pretty much all the films this series has looked at so far. But it wasn't always like this. As we know, film production took an artistic hiatus during the Cultural Revolution and only returned with a big impact in the 1980s with the so-called fifth generation. But it's the films of the sixth generation that began a new focus for film. The sixth generation star was born out of a need to create movies with less funds and outside the influence of state-sponsored film studios. In one way, they were limited in the types of films they could make, but in another way, they were more free to tell the stories that were important to them. Because of this, one of the defining characteristics of sixth generation cinema was its focus on peripheral figures, those who exist on the fringes of society. The film Xiao Wu is the epitome of this defining feature. It's the story of a pickpocket shunned by his colleagues as they try and move on with their lives. Xiao Wu studies the characteristics and charm of this social outcast and sympathizes with the issues he faces. Using the social realist method, we are placed into a condition that is particular to this character, his environment, and his culture, that is unfamiliar to us in order to experience another type of life. Xiao Wu was the first film of the sixth generation director Jia Zhangke, and is followed by a whole portfolio of films that reaches up until present day, all of them focused on the modern world and wayward souls in a way that few other Chinese filmmakers attempted at the time. All his films seem to deal with characters that are unable to fit in anywhere else, involved in subculture, or left out of the mainstream narrative in one way or another. We see it in Unknown Pleasures, we see it in Platform, we see it in Ash's Purest White. But there's another film that really encapsulates the sixth generation spirit for me. Zhang Yuan's Beijing Bastards is a film about a member of a punk band in Beijing in the 90s that was written by and stars Beijing punk musician Cui Jian. This was one of the first independently produced movies in the country, filmed mostly on handheld camcorders. The film's portrayal of the underground punk scene transports us into this world, welcomes us into this subculture, and although the film is not directly about the music, it documents this often retracted but important scene in a raw and honest style. More recently, it's through documentary film that we get an even more genuine insight into these left out experiences. And what better way to explore subcultures and different lifestyles than to document them through the real people that live them.
I think that's my life. I don't want to involve with the society.
One of the most accessible documentary makers in the modern scene is Fan Jian, whose work tells the story of contemporary China through social issues and the people that face them. In a way, his films offer a backstage pass to Chinese society's less represented groups. His 2008 film Taxi, available to watch on Vimeo, follows a Beijing taxi driver as we listen to his conversations with passengers. Arguably, the best way to understand the underbelly of a society is through the taxi driver/therapist, to whom people reveal themselves honestly. I found this film to be one of the best representations of this cross-section of society, and I couldn't help thinking that if one really wants to better understand China, especially during this period on the edge of the Olympics, then this is the film for you.
那您今儿不用是吗？这我能用，我带着还有。哎呦，但我这教我这个都是教会里边。
Like I said at the beginning of this series, the images we are used to seeing do not do justice to the real issues present in contemporary China. This then led me to the conclusion that these types of movie, the ones about ordinary and forgotten people, are an important way to learn about modern China. Through the people who are left out of the mainstream narrative, we get to closer understand the real issues people face.
进长沙其实挺孤独的，真的很孤独，自己是感觉身边真的没有一个。
So here I am, watching 杀马特我爱你, and loving that this strange subculture has thrived in China and is providing a place for people to express themselves and find a support group to deal with the often horrendous work conditions faced by migrant workers across rural China. An experience specific to character, environment, culture, and time, but portrayed in a way that mainstream society can sympathize and relate to, which is, in the end, what good films are all about.
玩杀马特的时候，我拍视频，我自己都认不了我自己了，因为我感觉我就是另外一个人。